Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Arunaji.
Morning.
Yes, Daniel. What do you have in your mind?
I
You got out. डिस्कनेक्ट हो गए डैनियल. आ जाएंगे अभी. डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया डैनियल का.
इंटरनेट का इश्यू होगा या गलती से कुछ बटन दबा दिया, क्या पता।
हाँ, हो सकता है कुछ बता गलती से दबा दिया या डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया या क्या हो गया. आ रहे हैं फिर
He
से.
will. हम्म।
Welcome back.
sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, we were saying something.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it's kind of a big question, I think. So I'm just trying to phrase it correctly. Um, so my understanding of sort of the grander one of the grander concepts of what we've been talking about is divorcing yourself from the karmic outcomes of your actions. So you bring yourself to the moment and you do your best in the moment, and you divorce yourself from the outcomes of that. And um, this is like this is a huge struggle for me to do that in general, but in particular wrestling with this idea that not worrying about the outcomes means not bringing so much to the table. And I'm wondering, meaning I feel like a lot of my drive to do well in the moment comes from my concern with the outcomes. And so I'm struggling
Let's. Um, you're freezing out.
about the
You
karmic
probably.
outcomes of the action. Does that
You
make
see, let
sense?
us put it this way: that whenever we have a knowledge, and that knowledge transforms into karma, into an action. Obviously, the knowledge and the action are designed for a purpose. So that purpose always has to be in mind. Detach the purpose from the outcome. My purpose is that when I'm going to go to work, I should earn a living, feed my family, look after my expenses, take care of whatever I need to, is the purpose why I'm going to. But the purpose also is larger, because if I'm working as a doctor, it's not only that I'm working for money, I'm also working to take care of patients and make sure that they're healthy. I'm spreading the goodness of health. So when you define your purpose, the outcome of it takes a second place. So here's what it is: I have the knowledge, and based on the knowledge, I'm performing my actions. My actions and my knowledge have directed me to a purpose. So I have a purpose, but what is the outcome? I can get detached from it. That is expectations. That is what I need to always focus at, that I'm going to be, if I'm doing this job, if I'm performing this surgery as a doctor, I will be performing the surgery, but you know what? I'll be paid $20,000. Whereas performing the surgery, the outcome that the patient should recover is now going to lose its priority because the $20,000 come in the focus.
Right. So
This is the whole idea. The purpose has to be there, otherwise we don't do a karma. We don't do an action.
right.
But purpose should not be attached to the outcome or the results that we are going to get from the actions. If you will think about it, in small measures and practice it, you will see it becomes easier to understand, and you'll be able to implement it in more and more and more, and it becomes a way of life.
So can we use that example? So if we use the example of the doctor, okay? So I'm a doctor. My purpose in life is to help people remain or get healthy, okay? And my purpose would seemingly be to help as many people as I possibly can. You can get caught in endlessly considering how you can expand how many people you're helping. And so if your purpose is to help as many people as possible, how do you get out of not saying, "Oh, how can I make this like bigger?" Like how do you not get stuck in the endless um the sort of like the infinite considerations when you want to pursue something like a purpose of like helping as many people as possible?
Where is any conflict here? Let us look at two situations. I work in a small town in Africa.
Hmm.
I've gone as a doctor to help people in small town in Africa.
Hmm.
And if I'm having a clinic or if I'm driving or going up to the patients, it is endless. And I might be serving something like 100 people every day, or there might be 5,000 people outside my clinic waiting to be seen. It's possible. So
Sure.
what am I going to do? I'm going to expand myself by what? By hours. So instead of working 8 hours, I might be working 14 hours, 15 hours.
Right.
It's possible. Or I might also be working while I'm doing other things like having my food or taking care of my other needs. I'm going to still be working or attending to patients. So that is one situation where, I mean, there is no conflict. I can do it or I may not do it.
So the conflict that I'm trying to outline would be um within the method in which you're helping people. Okay, so you're a doctor in Africa and you've got a lineup out the door. You've got 1,000 people that are waiting. Let's say you work through all your lunches and everything. You can help 500 people. Okay, there at one moment you could say, "Oh, if I stop and think about this, I can change 500 to 800 if I do it this way." Right? So if I line them up this way and I sort them before they come in, and I know I've got all of my guys with fevers here and all of my guys with whatever, there's a more efficient way of doing it. I mean, obviously I don't know how you would do that in a medical sense, but triaging is certainly a valid approach in these scenarios. And so in that particular case, it now makes sense for me to take time out to figure out how to bring on the 300. And there's an infinite number of those scenarios to consider. And so at what point do I say, "Oh, I need to start helping people"? You know, when do I stop planning for the future and the ultimate number of people that I help and just start helping?
Isn't it ongoing, something that revolves all the time, evolves all the time? It is something that happens all the time with every human being. We all try to be more efficient and manage our time better and manage
Mhm.
things properly. So there is no conflict. There is nothing here that sort of uh, makes a difference in the theory of the karma or the outcome of the karma. It's not. It does not conflict anywhere. I can
Perhaps
still
if
evolve and I can do efficiently anytime I want to. Now, let's say I tell the patients that those who are really very serious or need immediate attention should line up separately and come and see me earlier. Or I might starting keeping an assistant who's going to help me out there and define people who need to be coming first or who need to be coming later on. Or he
Sure.
makes a list of people and he tells them that you only come Tuesday and you come on Wednesday and you come on Thursday because I can only accommodate so many people. Don't come and waste your time.
Right.
It's always possible to have efficient ways of working. There is no conflict in the karma and the outcome of karma.
So the conflict is between how I devote my time. I either take this hour and help 5 people, or I take this hour and figure out how to be more efficient.
Every human being must is always, I think, planning to give his best. Whatever a person does, giving your best is the best thing to do. Whatever best one can think, whatever best one can apply and do, there is nothing wrong in it, because it's still the karma. When you're doing your best, you're getting back something that is also the best. It's the same thing. I mean, if you know the way the system works in Canada, it's a much more organized society and we work in a little different way. And a doctor only sees so many patients in a day, that is planned by pre appointments or secretaries and all these things. And there's a set date given to you. And again, when he is billing it to the government, to the OHIP system, he is told that you cannot be seeing more than X number of doctors. We will not pay you. Patients,
Sure.
sorry, X number of patients. We will not pay you. So there's an organized system of way of doing things. Obviously, a person who's working within a set principled framework, which is more defined, and person who's working out of that framework could have a difference in the way of their approach and work and applicability. But then these things are do not impact the outcome of your karma. You're still doing your best and you're doing the work, whatever best you could do in your best capabilities.
Right. So the karmic impact is going to be the same, assuming that you bring the right.
Yeah, as long as your intentions and your efforts are proper, that's okay.
So where is there an escape that's offered from tendency to endlessly get stuck you're taking too much time out to make things perfect as opposed to just doing? Like, I can come at both of those things with the same level of purpose, but one provides significantly better outcomes than the other. Is there some principle, like, let's say, because so in society, if the answer is that society puts in these regulations for you, and that's how you sort of regulate that stuff, that removes purpose from the equation, in that I would expect the sort of moral take, or the religious spiritual take on a doctor's role in society would be such that if society's rules tell you to do something immoral, that you should still take the moral action. Meaning, we look back in time and we look at doctors that did heroic things by sort of breaking the rules and applying, a modern ethic to something that was not so advanced at the time. And so in these cases, we can't look to the regulations to provide the moral guidance. We would look to something like religion and purpose, right?
Well, isn't it binding upon each individual, each human being, to pick and choose his right karmas? That
Mhm.
I should be performing what is righteous, what is the best, and what I should be doing.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. So if the society or the governments or the norms don't permit you, I mean, you always have a choice to quit. You have a choice to go somewhere else or leave the country or protest or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
But then there is always the implication of one's we must understand one thing, whatever I do is my personal life. Whatever I think in my mind and whatever I speak is a speech, I will be getting a karma's fruit for everything.
Right.
And I will not get the fruits of karma of my next person who's sitting next to me or my son or my wife. I will be getting my karma's fruits. So I need to be very selfish in picking and choosing what I am doing or thinking. because it's going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to somebody else. This is where the upbringing or the education that should be Vedic makes a difference. That when you start thinking about something, your thought process itself has to be focused on what am I doing? Is it something that is according to the dharma or is it against the dharma? Is it according to what should be or what it should not be? So if I'm following what should not be, should I not correct myself or should I keep doing it? So eventually, whether I'm doing this or I'm doing that, I'm good or bad or eagle or whatever I'm doing, there is going to be an outcome of everything. I will be facing it. If I'm holding a gun in my hand and there's a guy in front of me and I'm thinking whether I should shoot or not, I know that there is going to be an outcome. If I shoot, there is going to be an outcome. If I don't shoot, there'll be a different outcome. Every man, every human being has a choice. That is what is called the independence of karma that a human being has. That every human being has been given the freedom to choose what she wants to do.
Right. So in this scenario, when we're talking about when we have like a gun, whether to shoot it or not, the moral implications seem to be fairly obvious. The outcome seems to be fairly obvious, one being good, one being bad. And obviously that's why you chose it as an example. But in the scenario that we're talking about, where I'm choosing between whether to do something that immediately helps someone versus spending time planning on how to help more people, the moral choice isn't necessarily so obvious, right? So the trade-off, there's sort of some ideal balance there, and I'm not sure what the guidance is. Is there something here, or is this just not what we're talking about today, like what we're talking about in general?
It's a little too vague in the application because we do not know where the line to be drawn, which is really correct, which is not really correct. But that depends upon individual to individual and depends upon what the person thinks best at that time.
Right.
This will also be governed by what is my own upbringing, my education, my training, as well as what are my samskaras that have been imbibed in me from last, I don't know, million of years, and that leads me to being an individual that I am. So my thinking is so inclined towards this thing or that thing. So everything will impact upon what I think is the best choice. But then the reality is that whatever I think is the best choice, I should be ready to accept the results that come from my thinking, from my choice.
Yeah, the thing that gets confusing is when you start to consider the choice in and of itself. So when you're saying it folds in on itself. So we say like um as soon as the best choice is for you based on how you've arrived at this moment. The best choice for you is the accumulation of all of these things that are impossible to consider. But when you start to think about that, so the idea is you could just arrive at that moment and whatever happens just happens, right? But when you start considering that decision and you consider those variables and you take yourself out of it, you've now you're folded in on it. You're no longer in it, and you're saying, am I now making the right choice? Am I just am I did I arrive at this moment as I am, or am I now thinking about it outside of the moment? And I guess is it that it's really impossible to do that, and I'm just tricking myself, and that's
Well,
all it's
what I usually typically I call it is the helicopter view.
right.
Sit in a helicopter, get up on the air, and now you can see what's happening in the on the ground and your family, your house and everything, but you cannot be involved.
Right.
You cannot tell somebody that do this or don't do this, or you cannot restrain somebody. You can see it, you know this is happening, but you
Right.
cannot do anything about it because it's a view that you have, but it's a detached view. So I call it the helicopter view. It's the same thing.
Right.
When you have this thing in your mind and you want really to view it in a very correct perspective, you got to be detached from it and view it as a third party,
Right.
that I'm sitting in a helicopter and I cannot control it. But this is what is happening. How should it be happening? Then it gives you a better perspective.
Yeah, it seems like there's always another helicopter to be had, though. There's a helicopter to watch your helicopter.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. That was my only question for today.
Um, I had spoken about the rituals,
Hmm.
and I told you that these are individual, designed for individual lives, the rituals. There are 16 rituals that start even before a person is born.
Yes, I
So when
remember.
a child is conceived, it starts from there. And then one by one in the life, it goes on and on and on till the person dies. So there are these rituals that are designed on individuals that happens to all of us. It does not also imply that if number one or number three was not done, number six cannot be done. It's nothing like that. As a person grows, there are many people who don't have any of the rituals other than maybe the marriage ceremony or whatever, and then the death ceremony, and they don't have anything else. It's possible. But whatever ritual you want to follow and you want to do it in your life is good for you and it should be done. Just like we have individual rituals, we do have the social rituals as well. The social rituals are all designed as festivals or happenings or events, and they are mostly designed on either the seasons or the farms, that's the land agriculture.
Right.
Because agriculture and produce was the main business or trade at certain time when these were designed. So they are designed accordingly.
Right. So there's a lot of rituals that revolve around harvests all over the place,
Correct.
right?
So they are designed around harvests as well as they are designed around seasons.
Right.
So when we have the seasons, obviously because we follow 6 seasons. So at the change or at the confluence of the 2 seasons, there is always a small festivity, typically designed for that this is what is good for your body at this time in the season. So we consume these things and we don't consume these things. It is put in as a festival thing for people to follow and do. And that's how it is done for the next 2 months. Till then, 2 months later, there is another small little festivity. Okay, should be done and this should not be done. That sort of a thing.
So sorry, that's what you eat. It is dietary restrictions based on the seasons.
It's a dietary suggestion, you can say. So things that are, let's put it this way, that once the winter season is over and the summer or the spring is coming in, if you eat these certain things, the body gets more cold or feels more cold inside. So avoid these things and take warmer things to eat. Typical example would be that when January is almost there and ending, and when the sun has started traveling to the northern hemisphere, and it is on the line of, let's say, Capricorn now, typically we would say that we consume more of sesame. Sesame is a festival thing that we do, that in the festival we celebrate it with consuming sesame with some jaggery. Now, why do we consume sesame and jaggery? Because sesame gives you warmth, it gives you energy and warmth. That certain times consumption of sesame helps the body keep its warmth because the winters are still going to be there for a little more time. But we know that the sun has already come to the northern part of the equator. So it's good to consume these things now because one thing, the digestion will work better. Digestive systems work with the sun's rays. If if the sun is in the southern hemisphere, the digestive system works in slower speed. When the sun comes in the northern hemisphere, which is during the summer and other times, the sun works better, gives us better digestion for people who live in the northern hemisphere. So when we know that the sun has now come into the northern hemisphere and it's on the line of Capricorn, we consume the sesame because we are able to digest the sesame and it gives us the warmth and heat. This is just an example that I'm using. Similarly, there are other times in the festival and season that is suggested. Typically, what we would do is we would make food items with those suggested things, distribute it among people, celebrate it, put it at home, make sure people at home are having it, or make sweets out of it. And the sweet meat would be distributed or sold or whatever we do. So this is this is like a ritual, I would say, that is done owing to seasons. So just like we have seasons, we have harvest rituals. Harvest rituals because now that the gain, it's like Thanksgiving,
Right.
because Thanksgiving is primarily a harvest ritual.
That's right.
So it's the same thing like Thanksgiving. And a harvest ritual because we have in India, we have two harvests for sure in a year. We grow two harvests for sure. So there are two Thanksgivings, so to say. And they are both celebrated as harvest festivals. And there are other things attached to it and done similarly. If there were farmers, then the farmers were very busy with their lives. And now that the harvest has been cut and it has been put in the marketplace and sold, these farmers would have a little more time now. So there is a brother sister festival at that time also, because they can get together now. All those things are now designed on similar things. So festivals are designed this way and they have become rituals. Now, rituals, obviously, there is a social fabric and there is an individual fabric. And I have told you what the individual fabric works and how the social fabric works. And this is how we work on the festivals. When the festivals, this festival must have fireworks, or that festival must have more of this thing. I mean, these things have been adding on, and it depends upon different parts of the country and different ways people want to follow and they want to
Those
do.
are those are the flavors that you get to play with.
It changes.
Yeah.
It changes accordingly. But
Right.
typically speaking, you will find even the names might be different, but you will find the same festival all over India spread out with some 16 different names and 12 different names, but they're there. And the flavors would be different, but they are all there. So this is how the rituals have formulated within the society. But there is a ritual I had told you which is called Yagya or Yagya, which is the fire oblation, where we believe that the um, it is the it is the primary or the basic or the most auspicious ritual that a person is supposed to follow or do every day in one's life. And primarily, it is designed in a way that since the creator of this world sacrifices everything for the good of the people, and he's always working, he's never asleep. He's always tiring himself, working very hard for the benefit of the people, for benefit of the society, animal kingdom, man kingdom, everything. Similarly, we also dedicate ourselves by what we do is symbolically sacrifice a spoon of clarified butter or a little bit of herbs in the fire. Fire is something that does not keep anything to itself. It immediately turns everything into its basic atoms and spreads it out in the atmosphere. So, fire is used for that purpose. so that it does not keep anything to itself and it's given out for everything. Typically, we take the inspiration from in the nature, if you look at, nothing takes anything for itself and it is always sacrificing itself. So to say that unless a seed sacrifices itself totally, a tree cannot grow out of it. A seed is no more a seed once it's put in the ground and the tree starts growing. It bursts open, it sort of finishes and it disintegrates. It's not there anymore. But then the tree comes up because the seed has sacrificed itself. When the tree is growing, it sacrifices all its fruits for the benefit of the humans, man, in animals, whatever. Whenever the plant grows, it sacrifices what it has borne to become a vegetation or vegetable for us to eat. So everything in the once we put a apple in our mouth, the apple is sacrificing itself, its form, so that it can be consumed and the strength or juices can be used by a human being. Everything in the nature sacrifices itself for the benefit of everything else. It is the same idea when we do the fire oblation, which is called the yajna, that I am giving everything away and it's not for my personal sense. So that when I go into the society, into the whole system, and I do my day's work and job, I am doing it for the benefit of the entire nature, mankind, everything else. And I'm not going to hurt anything, or I'm not going to take away, or cheat, or insult, or anything like that. So this is the basis of the daily ritual that everybody follows. Now, some people may not. In my family, in my father's family, where I grew up, we were five kids, and my parents, and we were going to everybody was school going kids and everything. But every morning we had the fire yajna in our house every morning. That would take us about 20-25 minutes. We would perform it with the mantras and everything, but we do it every day. Now there may be people who don't do it. In Canada, I'm also not doing it every day. It's not possible. But there are people who have made it more concise and smaller, and they just stand and pray with their folded hands. Some people put a lamp on. Some people just nowadays use an incense stick and do it with the incense stick. So there are alterations and there are adaptations that people can perform. But when in their heart and their mind they're reading out whatever mantras or prayers they're doing, it is always the same message. It is always the message that God allow me to do my work sincerely, forbid any wrongs that I am going to do, restrain me, stop me. These same prayers, everybody has the same prayers. And let me work for the good of the society, mankind, and everybody. It's the same prayers. So this is what typically is a daily, everyday routine sort of a ritual that you can say that everybody follows. But then again, because it's a very adaptable, changeable, democratic sort of a belief system, one does what one wants to do. Does not restrain anybody from doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of the benefit is in the idea of the ritual and taking the time. It's not so important the details so much as it's about taking the time, ritualizing it, and doing it with a sense of purpose and consistency.
It's like something that guides you every day in your life.
Right.
That, when I was going to the schools in my back home in India, we used to have a prayer in the morning in the school also. In the school assembly hall, all kids used to get together the first thing. They would have the prayers and then they would move to their classrooms. So that was the, I don't know, I don't think there are any prayers in the Canadian schools at all. But I
No,
believe they used to be before.
there used to
They
be.
have,
It gets very dicey though, right? Because
yeah.
because you prescribe it to other people that might not. It's a sensitive subject, so we tend to remove. It's actually kind of a theme in some of the stuff I've been reading recently about the difference between secular and spiritual parts of society. And interestingly, the guy was talking a little bit about how eventually you can get to the point where your secular activity is spiritual. And I think that's a little bit about what we've been talking about, which is how do you be a doctor the right way? So,
But when in a school, in any school in the world, if the kids get together in the morning and all they say is, God help me, let me be a good student and let me be somebody who's not evil or bad or whatever, and that's it. And what's wrong in it? I mean, then there something that says that going to take the name of this God or that God? It doesn't make a
no,
difference.
but
Or if you
some people,
don't believe in God, all you say is to your own self that let me promise myself to be a good person and not be a bad guy.
right, I agree. It's a, it's not the spiritual implications of it all that become a problem. It's the political implications of it all.
Yeah,
Like that's,
yeah, because we politicize it. That's the problem.
yeah, because
Problem
it's
is
like
in,
if it should be anything, it should be my guy, not your guy.
yeah,
And then everybody wants to talk about it like that, right?
yeah. It's like my God is better than your God.
That's right. And it
It's,
turns into
yeah,
a sort of absurd argument where everybody's showing that they are so unlike their own principles while arguing for said principles. It's funny how it happens, but
yeah. It's very sad. It's very sad. Somewhere in the back of the human being's head, in our subconscious mind, when we start our day and we say our prayer, whether we say it to the God or we say it to our own self, somewhere in the back of the head, in the subconscious mind, it helps us. It
mhm,
guides and leads us through the day.
mhm,
And if that one thing is practiced all over the world in a uniform manner, at least certain people would be better human beings than what they are today.
right,
So, this is all the idea is.
right,
Now, we've spoken about rituals, I've spoken about the basics of the Hinduism. I've also, we don't usually use the word ISM because we avoid it. But whatever it is, these are the basics that I've told you and spoken to you. Where do you want to go from here further? Do you
not
want me to
sure.
pick up? Do you want me to pick up a certain texture or a book and start studying it? What
Yeah,
will
let's do
happen
that.
is this. What will happen is this. Even if I pick up, like you have probably read the Gita, and even if I pick up Gita and start telling you right from the shlokas number 2, 3, 4, 5, each one of them will define and explain to you the beliefs or the way the Vedic and Hindu beliefs work in more elaborate, in a more different angle. It'll all be talking about such things because there's no end to learning and knowledge.
For sure.
So this is how it's going to be in future. And if you want, I can pick up any which one and start talking to you about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
The- I'll do that. I'll do that.
What do you want to start reading? Because I can read it
I
before.
would have to. I haven't thought about it yet.
Okay.
I haven't thought about it yet. Also depends upon my physical ability to go and grab those books and come to you. But that's what it will be.
Okay. Sounds good.
I will inform you. If possible, I will send a message to you and let you know that I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just let me know as soon as
Yeah,
you know, and
that'll
then
be that'll be better. Or
perfect.
I can pick it up and I can give an introduction and then we can start after that. That
That
shouldn't
sounds
be a
great.
problem. We could do that. I'm more inclined to uh, start with what is called the first Upanishad, which is called the Ish Upanishad.
Okay.
Ish means God, Ishwar, Lord. It's called the Ish Upanishad. It has only 18 mantras in it, and it is entirely taken from one of the Vedas. It is the 40th chapter of Yajur Veda that has been taken out and separately made into Ish Upanishad.
Okay.
And that is an Upanishad, we believe, that all other Upanishads, the 10 other Upanishads, take the spiritually, they derive from each Upanishad. They sort of confine themselves to the message and to the principles of each Upanishad. Even though the 10 other Upanishads are very elaborate and big, but they borrow from each Upanishad.
The essence.
And I also believe very strongly that Gita also borrows very heavily from each Upanishad. So I'm inclined to pick up the Ish Upanishad. I'm going to look into the where I have my notes and other things. I'll see if I can find it and keep it ready for next time. But
Sounds good.
if you can find something on ISH, Ish Upanishad, or EESH, I don't know however they spell it.
I'm sure I can find it.
Yeah. If you can find something you want to read about it, go ahead.
Wonderful.
I will answer everything that you read in it. And it's very, very interesting because it defines certain principles, the entire principles, very, very nicely. You will like it.
So is it so next week you're off, right?
Next Friday, I have a problem because I have the injection in my eye.
Right.
Like you can do it on Wednesday if you like it.
Wednesday?
Thursday,
Okay.
Wednesday, whenever you like it.
Let's do Thursday, actually. Thursday's better.
All right, let's do Thursday, same time.
Wonderful.
Thursday, same time, I will pick up Ish Upanishad and I'll give a talk on Ish Upanishad. After that, the Friday should be available.
Sounds
So
great.
that should not be a problem.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I had sent something to you on WhatsApp today.
I saw that. I haven't watched it, but
Yeah, watch it.
I will.
Watch it. And you might have questions coming out of it, but keep the questions for me. I'll be very happy to answer them.
I'll write them down.
Always. And whenever you have the opportunity to visit a temple,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Do there and see if you can. Yes, I know it's difficult because it's got to be Scarborough, Richmond Hill, all those areas.
It's pretty, yeah, it's kind of far and life's busy right now, but we'll figure it out.
If you can use 407,
yeah, that's true.
The best thing to go up to 407 young and get out of 407 and left side you have the Vishnu temple and go.
That's right. That's right.
That's the easiest thing to do for. But then if you are at Vishnu temple in Young, there is a temple north of Bathurst. There's a temple north of Woodbine. There's a temple north of one more street. I think the Bayview, one of those streets north also has more temples.
Yeah, there's one on Bayview too. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be easier for you to visit all of them at the same time and come back. But best time to go would be a Sunday morning or Sunday.
Sundays?
Sundays are the best time to go and go around 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10:30. Most of them should have lunch also served, publicly served.
Wonderful.
Partake in them, come back. Typically, we would have only vegetarian food because we are vegetarians primarily. Every Hindu should be a vegetarian. He is or he is not a different thing, but should be.
Right. Right.
We do not ascribe to eating any meats or anything at all, anywhere.
Right.
Primarily reason is nowadays we talk about the benefits of health and all these things, and human teeth are made not to bite on other living beings, and all these things are, you will read about these things everywhere they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But the most essentially what we believe is in the rebirth, and we know that the souls cannot be reborn as per what we want, but they are more reborn as per our karmas.
Mm-hmm.
And as if a soul is there reborn, it is the same soul that is reborn in an animal also. So nothing gives me a right to kill it or to eat it or consume it to fill up my belly.
Right.
Because it's the same soul. I can be born tomorrow as an animal also. So that's the primary basis, because we do not believe in killing or anything. And from there, everything else is cropped up later. And
yeah, well, I mean, the ethical argument for it, I think, is probably the strongest part of the whole thing. Everything else is just people trying to explore the science of it all, but that's not necessarily to say that should be driving the religious decision, you know?
That's correct. That's correct. That's the ethics is supposed to be, the principle is supposed to be what it's supposed to be. That's what it
Right.
is. And the rest is all dressed up later on and made to believe in all these things.
Right.
But that's how it is. Also, primarily, you see, uh, going going back, if I'm going to track back, and the way I have read documented history that is, I would say, year wise, or sorry, phase wise, up to maybe 800, 900 years before Christ, or 1,000 years before Christ. And that history, if I have read, typically on the way the societies were and the way the fabric of the whole country's culture was, I have also noticed that there have been documenting that people living on the seashore used to consume fish. So that I have read. So maybe it was only people who were living on the seashores that they used to consume fish, and others were not. But other than that, I have not read any documentation of any other meat eating or whatever it is in the entire history of society. But then there have been references of people who are considered demons or devils only because their food habits were bad. That has been documented in even 5, 6,000 years back history. And it was designed that these are evil people and they should be demolished, or they should be punished, or they should be arrested, or they should not be allowed to live. So I don't know, however you want to think about it or translate it. It's up to us.
Yeah, it's interesting. What we were talking about earlier with the rituals and being tied to seasons and festivals, it reminds me a little bit about this in that um, seasonal dietary restrictions sound a lot like um, hunter-gatherer society style knowledge or folklore or whatever it would be. It's like when you're living um, like that in that style, you're much more tied to the seasons. Seasons are so important to you because and particular types of food are available and safe in particular seasons, and that's very important to your ability to survive and live harmoniously with nature, which is,
That's
you know,
correct.
to them what we're talking about today in a modern context. Whereas the other ones, which are tied to harvest, um, are the second evolution or the second change in culture for us, which is okay. We're not as tied to seasons. I mean, obviously we still are, but not as. We're much more tied to agriculture, and so the seasonalities change. It's now about harvest instead of what is nature going to do. So we don't look at the six different ins and outs. We now are concerned with just two. Um, and it's all tied to that similar idea, which is like historical dietary needs and advice and all of that stuff. So
The entire science of Ayurveda is based on this. It's based on the seasonal and the local and the harvest.
right.
So it tells you very clearly that if this is what you're eating at this season, it's going to hurt you or harm you.
Hmm.
Or if you're eating this, it's going to help you and benefit you. So once these things, you see, if the body is kept healthy, the diseases are not there. And if you are not having a healthy lifestyle or healthy food habits, diseases are going to come to you.
Right.
So it's the same thing that has been imbibed in the public life and it was practiced. That's what it is.
Hmm.
The Ayurveda is a very typical of a science that is there for health and everything else. And it's not only medicines, it concentrates a lot on the um, way of life. the way a person leads a life. So, life routines, way of life, that is very important.
Yeah, well, I mean, and even we're learning more and more in science these days that your physical well-being is much more connected to your mental approach to things.
Yes,
You
it
know,
is. It is.
what you think
Yes.
ends up playing out in the body on some level, and they seem to be drawing, deeper and deeper connections all the time. So,
Yeah, that's very true. It affects everything.
mhm.
Affects everything. All right, should we wrap it up today?
Yeah, that sounds good. So
And
to
next week we'll be meeting on Thursday instead,
right,
and we will start on Ishopanishad on Thursday.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.